Hello, this is BillHahn. Welcome to the IBM BPM tutorial demo series. In this demonstration, we'll be taking a look at IBM BPM in the IBM SmartCloud. For more demonstrations on IBM BPM in action, you can go to IBMBPMDemos.com. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm logged on to the IBM SmartCloud Enterprise. In the control panel, I can create new instances of IBM software in the IBM SmartCloud. In the SmartCloud catalog of IBM software starter images, I can of course choose IBM BPM Process Center, Process Designer, Integration Designer, and the various editions like Standard, Advanced, and Express. If I choose a different view, like My Images Only, I can get a shorter list once I've built out some of these instances in the cloud. So we'll get started with IBM Process Center Advanced. We'll give this instance a name. I'll put my initials in it to make it easier to find. We can choose various CPU and memory and disk configurations. We're prompted for an administrative user ID and password for IBM BPM, as well as a DB2 database password. We'll get a summary page, and then once we submit this for instance creation, we get a provisioning confirmation message that says this instance, IBM BPM Process Center, has been successfully submitted and is being provisioned. So now we see that while this request is being processed, it doesn't yet have a host name as an example, but it will soon. I'll give it a tag, IBM BPM Process Center BillHahn, to make it easier for me to find later. And then as we wait through the magic of video editing, after about 10 minutes this instance is provisioned. So once it's done provisioning and is live in the IBM SmartCloud, it's indicated as active. It has an IP address, and the details are more forthcoming about, for instance, the host name and IP address. So we'll use that host name, make a copy of it, because that'll come in handy when we want to point at the IBM BPM Process Center from, for instance, a process designer to do some work. So I'll go ahead and create a new instance of IBM Process Designer in the SmartCloud. I'll choose a user ID and password for that process designer in the cloud. And now I'm going to point at the IBM BPM Process Center server from this instance of Process Designer, so Process Designer knows how to connect to the IBM Process Center server. Again, we get a confirmation message that this instance is being provisioned in the cloud. IBM BPM Process Designer is being provisioned. And while it's provisioning, what I'm going to do is show you some of the quick start, getting started information that is provided for IBM BPM in the cloud. So we have some quick links here that allow me to, from my local laptop, from my local web browser, connect to and use the IBM BPM Process Center in the cloud. So I'll click on Process Center, and I'll also click on Process Portal and show you that now we're connected from our local web browser across the internet to IBM BPM in SmartCloud. So here's our Process Center user interface from the web browser, our Process Portal UI in the web browser. We have a few other quick links in the Getting Started section of my SmartCloud Enterprise Admin console. So I'll click on Process Center Admin and show you that we can successfully connect to it. And then lastly, for the occasional administration of the underlying WebSphere application server that IBM BPM is running on top of in the cloud, we can get to the WAS, or WebSphere Application Server Admin Console, as well. So from a completeness standpoint, we can get to our live instance of IBM BPM in the SmartCloud. So a few minutes later, 5 to 10 minutes later, we see that our instance of Process Designer is active in the cloud. You can ignore this third entry. That was just some experimentation I'm doing in the background. If we take a look at Process Designer, we can see that Process Designer has its own unique host name for its instance in the cloud. So I'll make a copy of that so that we can actually connect to and remote control our Process Designer from our local workstation. So let me bring up the Windows Remote Desktop Connection, which is built into Windows on my laptop. It just comes with Windows. I'll paste in the IP address, or rather the host name, of my Process Designer instance in SmartCloud and connect to it. It prompts me for that user ID and password that I provided when I created an instance of Process Designer in the cloud. And once I'm connected, I can remote control it via my local laptop. So you can see this desktop looks different from my local laptop desktop. We're actually remote controlling the instance of Process Designer in the cloud. For those of you familiar with various editions of Microsoft Windows, you might recognize this from the start bar at the bottom as Windows 2008. And now I can run Process Designer in the Windows 2008 instance in the cloud, in SmartCloud, and get some work done. So let's exercise it a bit using the default admin user ID. Since we provided the host name of IBM Process Center, it has successfully connected to the IBM Process Center, as we see here in the list of process apps. The hiring sample application, process application, is a preloaded example process app. So when I try to open that up, I get a typical message on a version install of IBM BPM where I need to choose which user IDs are able to use and edit process apps. So I'll go ahead and add my user ID to this process application, and then in anticipation of wanting to use this process app from other user IDs, what I typically like to do is add the TW_admins group to any process app that's going to be widely used by a number of developers. That's a quick way of doing it. Of course, there are other ways of doing it. And you'll see why that comes in handy in a few minutes when I use this process app from various instances of Process Designer. So let me go ahead and open it up and confirm that I have a working IBM BPM system. You can see in the bottom right hand corner of Process Designer, it has a green indicator that we have a healthy connection to Process Center, and it has the host name of our Process Center server. So a little bit of confirmation that we're connected. Of course, we wouldn't be able to see this process diagram if we weren't, so we kind of already know that we are. So let me go ahead and exercise this process with the playback button, that orange play button, and step through it a bit. So we can see here that when we step through this process, we're able to use it, the sample, hiring sample that comes with IBM BPM. And as I step through it, you can see the history is built up. Let me go ahead and exercise this a bit more with a little bit more interesting an example here. Let me actually change the process on the fly. Let me rewire this process so that we can loop around through this rejection loop. Accept, reject. And we're going to use that to step through the process repeatedly as we use different combinations of Process Designer and Process Center. So we've sufficiently demonstrated that we've successfully provisioned Process Designer and IBM BPM Process Center in the cloud, as you see me stepping through this. And what you see me doing now is I'm going to minimize the Process Designer in the cloud, this remote desktop connection, and start working with IBM BPM and this hiring sample process remotely over my local desktop. What I mean by that is, let me bring up the web browser on my local laptop and use the web interface to continue with this process. Let me look at where I am in the process. As we saw in the Process Designer, we have a highlighted process diagram that shows us which step we're at. We can see we're at the Submit Job Requisition step. And as we're always able to do with the Process Portal web interface, we can work with the process. So I'll just continue working from the web interface to further verify that IBM BPM is running in action in the cloud. So now at this point I've used the process from the process designer and from the process portal, as you see me doing right now. Let me go into the next phase of the demonstration, which is to show what it's like to add new users to my team. So I'll go ahead and create a new user so that I don't have to use that admin user ID for everything. Let me add BillHahn in the process admin console as a new user. And I'll add BillHahn to my general purpose group, TW admins. So let me go ahead and add BillHahn. And now I'm going to switch over to the process designer in the cloud and open up a new instance of that and log on as BillHahn as opposed to the way I logged on before, admin. So now that I'm logged on as BillHahn and open up the hiring sample process application, you can see confirmation that I'm logged on as BillHahn. Up in the title bar it says BillHahn is designing or using this process app. I'll go ahead and run this process as BillHahn to confirm that everything is working correctly. And I'll go ahead and minimize that remote desktop connection and use this process, logging on as BillHahn from the process portal, and then continuing to use this process. So I can see where I am in the process, and I can claim this activity and work on it, and we see the continuing history of where I am and what I've done with this process. So now at this point I'm going to show you how I can configure a local install of Process Designer, which is relevant if you have members of the team that already have Process Designer installed on their desktop or laptop. So we can point an existing Process Designer install on someone's local machine at the IBM BPM Process Center in the SmartCloud. It's pretty simple. A couple of steps here. I'll go into where Process Designer is installed and edit the eclipse.ini file, and I'll replace the local machine name with the host name of IBM BPM Process Center in SmartCloud. There's one other step necessary, and that is to edit the Windows System32 drivers etc hosts file. In other words, I'm going to tell Windows what the host name and IP address is of my IBM BPM Process Center server in the cloud. So I already have the host name of IBM BPM Process Center in SmartCloud. Let me go ahead back to the IBM SmartCloud administrative console here. Click on the IBM Process Center instance and then go grab the IP address from my IBM SmartCloud Enterprise admin console. So I'll make a copy of that, and then I'll go back into my local machine in the etc host file and paste that in. So now my local machine in this one-time configuration motion has now knows the IP address and host name of my IBM BPM Process Center server in SmartCloud. So now if I go ahead and start up Process Designer on my local laptop, it's able to connect to Process Center in the IBM SmartCloud. I can log on using my new user ID, BillHahn, and I can open up the hiring sample process application and confirm that everything is in good working order. So I'll drill down, for instance, into this first activity and show you that I'm able to view and work with the user interface screens in the Coach Designer. So I can do a full range of Process Designer jockeying or editing and designing. If I look at what's currently running in IBM BPM in SmartCloud, I can see that the process instance number 5 is at the approve or reject step, which is highlighted in my process diagram, and that is task ID, unique ID number 13. So let me do two more things to round out the demonstration. Let me go ahead and progress this process. We can see now that we're at unique task ID number 14 at the submit requisition step in the process. And let me quickly switch over to my remote desktop connection to use the instance of Process Designer in the SmartCloud. If I switch over here, you can see very easily that this is the other Process Designer in the cloud because it has a different backdrop. And you can see now that when I go to refresh the view of this process, that it shows us that we are indeed at the submit requisition step in the process, unique task ID number 14. So let me exercise this a little bit more and show you some of the collaborative editing capabilities in action to confirm that everything's working in good working order. So in the cloud instance of Process Designer, I will create a new activity and I'll name it this added in cloud instance. If I switch over to my local laptop instance of Process Designer, it sees that BillHahn is editing in the cloud and has automatically switched me to read only so I can't accidentally change the process diagram while someone else is editing it. If I go back over to the cloud and hit the save button, then I can see that activity on my local machine. And let's do the reverse of that. Let's add an activity on my local machine where I'm using Process Designer. I'll indicate that this activity was added on my local laptop, and now when I go look at the Process Designer in the cloud, I can see it has visibility into the fact that someone else is editing the process. If I save it on my local machine and go look at it in the cloud, you can see that now both activities are visible to everyone. The one that was added in the cloud instance of Process Designer and the activity that was added in the local remote user instance of Process Designer. And I see that in both the cloud as well as in my local instance. I hope you've enjoyed this first look of IBM BPM in the IBM SmartCloud. If you'd like additional demonstrations and resources related to IBM BPM and IBM SmartCloud, you can go to IBMBPMDemos.com, and on this website you'll find many resources, presentations, videos, white papers, ebooks, an online trial environment, and a video wall of this and other demonstrations related to IBM BPM in action. Thank you for watching.